Hello everyone. Welcome to the MTG Homerow podcast. This is sort of the introduction announcement for the podcast. So one thing I'm excited to do with the podcast is to go over all the stuff on Substack, all the Substack articles. So you'll find deck techs, some sort of philosophical articles here, breakdowns of things such as every Magic card, some of my personal finance and how I rationalize spending money on Magic the Gathering. I'll announce giveaways here, and lots of commander decks, I think, will end up here. So, for instance, one reason I want to turn these articles into a podcast is so that I can go into sort of both sides of the article. So what I end up with is lessons that I learned from the deck building process, which is all here in the Substack article, and then the deck building process itself, which is on the MTG Goldfish deck tech and primer. So for this deck, which is H is for Homerow, where every card except for basic lands starts with the letter H, pretty early on in the deck building process, I realized that I'm sort of only going to have to do this once unless I really want to change the main theme of the deck, which I don't think I'm going to have to do anytime soon. Who knows? Maybe they print something really strong that goes well with other things in H. But for now, I think I found what I hope to be my favorite version of of a deck where every card starts with the letter H. So pretty early on in the deck building process, I realized that if I go really detailed on the deck building process, that I'm only gonna have to do it the one time, and then whenever a new set comes out, I just look at the handful, however many cards start with the letter H, and see if it goes with this version of the deck. So I started with the legendary cards. Anything that was legendary. Used Tomer's checklist, which this deck does not get close to fulfilling. In some ways, it's not too bad. And then I just went super deep. So this is a little more organized. So that's sort of the checklist at the beginning, which is what I ended up with. But for the deck building process itself, I just listed every card that I thought was playable or just considerable, I guess. Anything I was considering, I was throwing into the deck tech. Starting with legendary cards, all the legendary creatures and spells. And then got down to some... then just all the rares and mythics sorted by type, and then with some thoughts on each one, and including some things like the cycles that exist in the letter, which is pretty cool to have. Then there are 74 non-legendary rare and mythic creatures that start with the letter H, so we look at a bunch of those, and the rest. So then all the commons and uncommons that I thought could go into the deck that start with the letter H. So I went over all the cuts that I made toward the end, just in case I want to swap stuff back in. The stuff that made me sad to cut, like Havoc Festival, I guess I really wanted that in there. Humility. Anytime you can fit cards like Humility into a deck, it'd be pretty fun, but I don't think it made the cut in the end. So There are deck breakdowns that go super deep, so I'd like to go over those as a podcast episode. I think it'd be a nice way to tie in the article that I get out of the deck building process and the deck building process itself. Then there's other things that I'm not really sure decks I'm not sure what to do with. This was a viewer submitted deck for Commander Clash, and every card has a book in it, except for a lot of the cards aren't on Moto, but I submitted it anyways because it's fun to look at, because every card has a book in it. But a lot of these versions aren't on Moto because they're, I don't know. I think Prosper's on Moto now. It just doesn't have a ticket value because it's out of the treasure chest. Is that it? But some of them are secret layers. A lot of them are just not on Moto, whatever. But every card does have a book in it. And this deck is actually pretty cool, I think. Sort of functional almost, because of all these tutors that you get. You get Mystical Tutor and Personal Tutor and Enlightened Tutor. All have books. Demonic Tutor, Infernal Tutor. Look at all these tutors. So you can definitely get what you want out of the deck, I think. So pretty fun deck, fun to look at. So maybe we can go into what this deck does. Got a whole little mini article in the deck primer. And of course, I'd like to go over some of these more philosophical thoughts that I have about Magic, and hopefully I'll be able to snag some guests, get some guests on, maybe even for the first episode. We'll see if I can get someone to come on and talk about Magic for episode 1 of the podcast. And I'm excited to talk with my friends about Magic and go over some of the things that make Magic important to me, and help me find fulfillment in life and whatnot, and give some stuff away. And I also mention Magic Kids once in a while when I'm streaming, so maybe I'll mention Magic Kids on the podcast now and then. They're really cool. So Weird Cards and Magic Kids are charitable organizations. You can check out their website at magickids.org. And they make Oathbreaker the format, and they make pre-constructed decks for Oathbreaker, and they provide resources, teaching materials, and of course the cards, sorting and building decks, and supplying cards and other supplies so that kids can learn Magic. So I think they're super cool, and I'll shout them out as often as possible, I suppose. And for now, I think that'll do it for this a little introduction to the podcast. I'm excited to talk about Magic. And call to actions. You can like and subscribe. You can share this announcement of a podcast, and we'll see when episode 1 comes out. I'm not sure when. But this will be on YouTube. I'll put it up on Substack, and I suppose all the other podcast platforms, so it can go on Google Podcasts and Apple Podcasts and Stitcher and all the rest of it, Spotify and whatever. So listen to it there. Catch it on YouTube for video version. And we'll see you in episode 1 of the MTG Homerow podcast coming up. So thank you. Bye-bye.